listening to the Betmaker Show. This is the NFL free agency and draft preview for Monday, March 16th, 2020. And now, live from Las Vegas, the host of the Betmaker Show, Brian Blessing.
All right, folks, here we go. Brian Blessing and Bruce Marshall. We are in Las Vegas. We're going to focus on the NFL here, but just out of the gate, Bruce, the one thing that remains that is in the near future and at the moment is soldiering on is the NFL's calendar year with a draft that's scheduled for Vegas on April 23rd. There's no way in God's green earth they'll be able to pull that off. So another massive, hit to the league. It's a big blow to Las Vegas, but that's not anybody's main concern right now. We know that there's a much broader picture in play. But I guess the microcosm is if life is going to return to normal, the NFL is always the 800-pound gorilla, so you kind of follow their lead. And to this point, they're still operational.
Well, by the grace of God, because when all this stuff hit, it was in the off season here for the NFL. So, I mean, they'd be following suit with everybody else if this happened, if their season was underway. However, the draft, the party thing in Las Vegas is definitely not going to happen. The draft could still happen, and I think it'd be a valuable thing to do. They could still do it remotely. I mean, people do it with, on Skype and all that. Anyway, they could still cover it from ESPN studios. That's still a little bit more than a month away right now, and I think the masses badly need something like that. And if they're still going to stick with this edict where nobody can these huge get-togethers, well, you cancel the party. You don't have to cancel the draft. They didn't used to do it that way with these massive parties. So this year, just do it different. But we'll have to see what the NFL does. They're proceeding along like normal now, though, with their. The NFL year is starting. The free agency starts this week. They just passed the CBA. There's news coming out of the NFL, so that's at least proceeding like normal. And I do these shows around the country a lot, and did one in Denver on Saturday where the talk was mostly Broncos, and the host told me the response was overwhelmingly positive. So NFL is still a topic we can talk about, just like it's still on course to do what it normally does.
Well, with the NBA, the NHL, March Madness, all of it gone. Some gone for good, some gone for the foreseeable future, pending what all transpires. The one thing is the NFL, as if the rich don't get richer, the spotlight really falls on them in terms of, and I think it's a realistic thing. I had mentioned this to our top odds maker, Jack, in another podcast. And, I ain't a real smart guy, but as this thing was unraveling last week, to me, the main hope is, listen, come next football season, football's back on the beam. And if everybody takes a punch to the gut, and we all are, that by fall, it's business as usual for most everyone. But again, the NFL is the 800-pound gorilla.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned, I mean, the timing of this for the NFL, at least, I mean, it didn't have to really disrupt too much of anything. I mean, some things for sure, but the calendar for the NFL cranks up summer and fall. So that, as long as people have that to look forward to, and I think that's rather important right now, to have something to look forward to. And I actually think the NFL ought to fast forward the announcing of its schedule for 2020. That would be welcome news for the masses. And it's still several months off. If they have to change it later, fine. But they usually wait for that until early May because they like to make that its own deal right after the draft. But the things are a little bit different this year, and I think that would be a welcome thing. But I'll just, be glad if they just continue with their normal off-season stuff, and there's some news coming out that we can read that isn't Corona-oriented.
Yep, that's right. And, again, it's funny. I mean, and we know the PR aspect of a lot of these things. There is a push to table free agency, move that back. They may, but again, we're talking football in September. There's a flow to this that the free agency followed by the draft, and I think as long as it's a safety first thing, Bruce, I think they're best served to do it. Obviously, there'd be no bells and whistles to it, but if they're able to soldier through this, because even if you have the draft, even if you can't have the OTAs and rookie mini camps and things of that nature, at least you can organize. Here's what we're going to go to the field with in the fall, and you get rookies playbooks and things of that nature. I think finding a way to do it that the problem is too, Bruce, though, with free agency, when everybody's taking a punch to the gut, and you're seeing guys signing $120 million deals from a PR perspective. That's not a home run. Well,
and this is where the NFL people have to be a little bit strong and see a little bit, take the bigger picture for for society. I think the perception is that the media perception of this, and you see the sports media guys doing, everybody's going to be afraid to say something that will get them crushed by other people in the media. The masses, however, want to hear good news. They would love to hear that they don't have to stay indoors. They would love to hear that they can go out to the restaurants. They would love to hear they could go to church. They would love to hear they could have birthday parties and weddings. So the reality is the populace would love to have some good news like that. And this is where I think but there's a fear. And so you see it. Some of the media guys now are scared to say anything that doesn't go along with everything, shut everything down for 2 months and 8 weeks and all that. But the masses aren't thinking like that. I will guarantee you that they want to hear some good news. The NFL can help with that, and this draft party thing, they don't have to do that. They can still. Well,
here I've got. Forgive me for interrupting, because as we're doing this, we say that the NFL has come to terms with a collective bargaining agreement. So that's been put to bed, and a 17-game schedule is on the horizon. But as we are taping this segment, 4 minutes ago, the NFL has made it official that there'll be no public events in Las Vegas as part of the draft. It will take place as scheduled from April 23rd through the 25th. It will be televised. The quotes from Goodell: the decision reflects our foremost priority, the health and safety of all fans and citizens. While the outcome is disappointing to both the NFL and to the Las Vegas community, we look forward to partnering with the Raiders, the City of Las Vegas, and the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Bureau for a future NFL draft, as well as evaluating opportunities for other major NFL events in Las Vegas in the future, including the Super Bowl. So literally this just came down. The draft will go on. I mean, it was pretty obvious. They needed a month to build all the stage and all the things they were going to do. But clearly, if we're looking at gatherings of 50 people or less for 8 weeks, there was no way that was going to happen. But the main thing is what they're saying is business goes on. Take the frills away from it, Bruce. But I it's a punch to the gut for Vegas. But I think if you went glasses half full, this is good news.
Oh, it's very good news, and I applaud the NFL for Goodell for doing that. I thought that's what they should have done. There will be people in the news who will complain about this, and they will try to skewer Goodell. He's got to hold firm here, though, because this is what the overwhelming number of masses want. And there's a big demarcation point between what you're hearing, and including these guys on ESPN, and who are going to take the party line of the major networks, and what the masses want. And this is extremely good news. And I would hope they would even think about doing my thing with the schedule too, just to put some hope into this. Let's not forget, we talked about this last week. Sports can play a very important role in times of crisis like that, and it's got the country moving again after 9/11. Got the country moving again after JFK was assassinated. They really needed sports, and back further, we know in World War II, I mean, there were people thinking everything's got to shut down, and FDR came out and said, no, I want baseball. We need something a little bit normal. So,
and I'm just thinking, Bruce, I mean, it's funny because we led into this and then it happened. I mean, it's odd. This is a podcast, but from a breaking news perspective, it happened while we were doing this. And I think the big picture is it means they're going to try to soldier on as best they can with their calendar year, albeit in a different fashion. But to constantly be delaying and shutting things down, it would lessen the load of the impact that we can get back to life as normal. Yes, you do it without frills, but I think here's someone saying, no, we got to keep doing this. I mean, we can still function. We can work from home. You take the bells and whistles away, but you try to find a sense of normalcy somewhere. And maybe in a weird way, the NFL's given us that outlet.
Oh, absolutely. I was hoping this is what they would do, and I'm pleased as punch they're doing it, because that's it keeps the NFL, and there's nothing wrong with that right now. This is what bothers me now, that somehow that there's people in the media that the reaction is there's something terribly wrong if you're trying to be normal right now, and they just don't know history, and they don't. There's the panic here. Somebody has to have a little bit of a sense of calm about this and perspective, and I'm glad the NFL is doing it. But again, it was fortuitous timing wise only for the NFL in this, and that they can still do some of these things. College football right now really can't do some of that stuff. They've shut down spring practices and all, and spring football. But that's a great point. I mean, we hopefully we get back and we've got football, and we're looking months down the road. I think the NFL could come back, and the hope would be they didn't skip a beat. It was business as usual. College football, I think, faces big hurdles. Yeah, because first of all, it's colleges. I mean, most of these colleges aren't even in session right now. So, I mean, if that would continue, that could snap back too. Once you get into summer, you'd be surprised how many players and coaches are being honest with you. How many of them think spring football is a big waste? And I've had guys involved in college football tell me before, the greatest recruiting tool they could ever have would be, we don't do spring football here. Just work out on your own. And a lot of them think it's a waste of time. So internally, they won't say this publicly, but internally, there's a lot of people in college football glad there's no spring football. But they can bounce back. But the other thing is, there's nothing else right now that the college football can do to stay sort of in focus right now. It's going to drop off the map like most of the other things. The NFL has a few of these things that happen in the off season. And it was funny, over the weekend, I got tired of watching the news, and I switched on the NFL Network, and they had all these neat shows on the football, like Kenny Stabler and Staubach and their normal stuff. And I thought, this is okay. And for all of us who are involved in this stuff, the NFL is a very, very important thing. And this will cause a lot of people to embrace the NFL a bit more. So I applaud Roger Goodell for standing firm here. And listen, then the draft party thing was that was just a nice frill, but they can conduct the draft. This will be like back in the 70s, Brian. And this is how they used to do it in the old days. And we'll all watch on TV, and that didn't happen really until ESPN came around. So it'll be sort of like the old days with the draft.
Let's make some money tonight. For outstanding information and special offerings and promotions, we invite you and encourage you to sign up for our newsletter today, simply by going to the website at betmaker.com.
Well, in the weeks to come, and it is a betting focus. It's funny. I mean, if you want to say what is on the wagering board, NFL draft props are how many SEC guys, how many quarterbacks in the first round. There are things that are actually out there for this event in April 23rd. Maybe in reality, the only numbers truly that are on the board that you could say this is going to happen. So we'll focus on the NFL draft in future, I think in future podcasts, but we can do that. Let's just go with the news of the day here and this week with free agency. Literally, they can start the interview process and the signings, I believe, are Wednesday at noon. But we've already seen Ryan Tannehill get paid. He's going to stay with the Titans. He gets $118 million for 4 years, and then the Titans leave nothing to chance, slap the exclusive franchise tag on Derrick Henry, so they've got their offensive components that got them to the AFC Championship game. Kirk Cousins gets a 2-year contract extension. We're seeing basically the Niners say they're going with Garoppolo. So the Brady watch, he's not going to San Fran. And Tampa Bay is now kind of the front runner. It seems that it's in Vegas was discussed, but it seems like it's for Brady going to be either New England or Tampa Bay. And whether that's just a big hand of poker remains to be seen. But things are happening.
Yeah, and there is stuff happening, which is good. The Steelers, their offseason question really was, what are they going to do with Bud Dupree? And they put the franchise tag on him. Dak, the franchise tag on him with Dallas is pretty big news, what Jerry was going to do there. I always thought that's how Jerry was going to go with Dak, and that I applauded Jones last season. If you might, I'm sure we mentioned this in some of the podcasts last year, but when Dak started off really hot, people thought that he's got Jerry over a barrel here, but Jerry resisted, going with the huge, mega contract, the $40 million per year thing that Dak's people wanted, because he knew that those stats were hollow and they were against lesser opposition. And sure enough, Dak leveled out as the season went on. The CBA news is pretty important over the weekend for a variety of reasons. More immediate is that it is going to up the cap this year. And that would be important, I think, for Brady's situation. If he's going to go back to New England, that gives both sides a little bit more flexibility there. There was a word that New England was going to lowball, or they did lowball Brady, but that was before the new CBA came in, and but it does look like, from what you hear, Tampa Bay is ready to go all in with Brady, and it's them or it's the Bucs or New England. Apparently the Chargers and the Raiders have fallen off the map, and the 49ers as well. We'll see, because once the CBA and that part of the CBA kicks in immediately here with the cap going up, and also that will be something to watch here in the next few weeks.
I would say to you, Bruce, I'm enjoying this at the moment because it is the most normal I think we've felt in maybe 5 days now. Things are popping up left and right all over the place. Christian Kirksey, Browns linebacker, 2-year, $16 million deal with Green Bay in the last moments. We're seeing franchise tags being placed on people. The Pats are going to use a franchise tag on a guard. Thuney, the Cardinals, a transition tag on Kenyon Drake, who was wonderful for them after they acquired him. And the Chiefs have placed the tag on Eric Jones, the sack leader in the NFL. So the business aspect of it's like, hey, sports. It's fun.
Well, here's one just came in. The Bengals hit the franchise tag on A.J. Green, and there was some talk that he might walk, so it looks like at least he'll be locked up there for another year. And so some things are happening here. The Bucs franchise Shaq Barrett, so that was good for them. And there's some contract things going on. So this is extremely important right now, I think, for just the masses to have some sort of normalcy. And I am hoping, well, actually, no, I'm suggesting tune out everybody on ESPN who says the NFL shouldn't be doing this right now. Just tune them out and shame on them for doing that. This is something that the masses need right now. And the lack of perspective on the big picture, and this might sound, I'm not being heartless saying this, but there's got to be a message here that commerce and the economy cannot grind to a halt, and that the resultant problems from that are going to dwarf anything they're talking about right now. And there's not much concern being paid to that. And the NFL is actually acting as a remedy in its own way. And that's what I'm really thrilled the NFL is doing this. And the sporting public is thrilled with this too. The masses, my goodness, they love hearing this news. And that's something in short supply now.
Okay, the big news, Bruce, the CBA, and ultimately at some point here, right, a 17-game schedule. And honestly, preseason is just a joke. And how many good players would get hurt and out for the year in preseason football? Cut that down. 17 season, 2 extra teams will make the playoffs, which I think is really, really amazing for a long NFL season. That if you can throw 2 extra teams into the equation, that annual meaningless Week 17 thing could be a thing of the past.
Yeah, and a few things here. One, they'll probably cut the preseason to 3 games.
Thank God.
Which might mean preseason Week 3 becomes like preseason Week 4 has been. I happen to be the only person who enjoys preseason because I think it's a great betting angle. But
it is.
So I'd missed that last week. But the 17, what you would get then on the Saturday and Sunday, the first playoff weekend, wild card weekend, would be triple headers each day. So there you go. They play. The only bye would be for the top overall seed in the conference. So you'll get down to 8 after that first weekend, but there would just be an extra game each Saturday and Sunday. And won't that be kind of cool? Second, the 17 game schedule will start. This will all start. The playoff thing can start now. The 17 game will start probably in 2021. There's a labor peace until 2030, so it's going to allow the leagues to do that. Also, there's a thought, since the schedule is going to be a bit imbalanced, that the NFL, one of the thoughts is they could really expand the international schedule. So everybody's got 16 games stateside here, and each team has 1 game internationally. Now, right now, that might seem crazy to talk about that here in March of 2020, but when things clear up, as they will, you can start reviving the London stuff, Mexico City. There's talk even of playing in some venues in the States here, big college venues, say Norman, Oklahoma for a game, bring a game back to St. Louis. And so each team can still have 8 home and 8 road and 1 neutral game. So there's a lot of flexibility the NFL can have with this. I thought that the whole CBA vote was really intriguing, though, and in that the masses of the NFL are not the superstars who were generally against this proposal, but it was the rank and file. It was the special team guys, the backup linebackers, and guys like that, whose votes counted just the same as Aaron Rodgers, and Brady and the rest, and they ended up carrying the vote here, and it will bump their pay up a little bit. And it reminded me a little bit of how FIFA works, and how Sepp Blatter all those years was able to stay in power because he had Africa solidly behind him, and there were so many countries there, and their votes counted as much as England or Germany in FIFA, and he was able to court them and keep himself in the power structure in place for a long time. So it was the masses, actually, that in the NFL, it was the backups and it was the special team guys, because they actually outnumber the superstars, and they're the ones who actually push this vote through.
Well, Bruce, a bizarre time for all of us in sports, again, is secondary, but a part of it is we look to the future. I think it's everything we just kind of alluded to. Secondary, maybe. I mean, they're priorities. But this is a big part of our life, and we're fortunate we do this. We enjoy it, and as you say, the masses enjoy it, and we want to enjoy our lives. So the first thing is let's get through this, and you hope cooler heads prevail. And the massive, it's so hard to say overreactions, but find a way to expedite the return to normalcy. And what the answer is to that, I'm no smarter than the next guy, but. We hope for the best.
Oh, absolutely. And roll with these punches. But, keep in mind, we want this thing to snap back, and you want commerce to happen again. And you don't want to destroy everything that has been built here, this great society here for 200 plus years and up to this point. And then you can't let that be destroyed. And people don't want that. And so in the end, that's what people want to get back to normal, and the NFL will help them and not put anybody really at risk here. So why not go ahead with it? Sure, I think it's great news.
He's our pal Bruce Marshall from the Gold Sheet. I'm Brian Blessing. We're in Las Vegas, and this is going to be a big focus for us moving forward here. The NFL, it's a crazy week with free agency and the NFL draft because we're plotting a course towards kicking it off again next year, which we are all certainly hoping that will be the case. Thanks, Bruce.
Okay, Brian.
Betmaker, let's make some money tonight.
Well, that's the Betmaker Show for now. We publish multiple times each week. We'd like to thank you for listening, and if you liked what you heard, please take a moment to leave a rating and review, or subscribe to our show feed, or share our show with a friend or two and help us grow the show. We very much appreciate it. Visit us on the web at betmaker.com. And reminder to sign up for the newsletter. Thanks to our engineer, Darren Vandermolen, and producer, Mike Gallivan. The Betmaker Show is a production of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated. Betmaker is a registered trademark. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this content without the express written consent of Cardinal Marketing Incorporated is strictly prohibited.
The handicapping and sports odds information contained on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Please confirm the wagering regulations in your jurisdiction as they vary from state to state, province to province, and country to country. Using this information to contravene any law or statute is prohibited. The podcast is not associated with, nor is it endorsed by any professional or collegiate league, association, or team. This podcast does not target and is not intended for an audience under the age of 18. If you think that you have a gambling addiction, stop this podcast now and please seek help.
Gambling and betting on sports is a form of entertainment and should be about having a good time. But when done excessively, it may negatively affect other areas of a person's life, such as their physical and mental health, school or work performance, finances, and or interpersonal relationships. At Betmaker.com and the Betmaker Show, we're concerned about the addiction that gambling may cause, and for this reason, we encourage everyone to practice responsible gambling. An approach to gambling that helps you ensure that it remains an enjoyable activity. Here are the main principles of responsible gambling. Don't think of gambling as a way to make money. Always gamble with money that you can afford to lose. Set limits and stick to them. Never chase losses. Don't gamble when you're depressed or upset, and create a healthy balance. Always be aware of how much time you spend gambling or thinking about gambling. And do not allow gambling to cause you to miss out on time with family and friends or time spent on other activities you enjoy. By following these guidelines, gambling can be a good time and great entertainment. If you feel at any time that your gambling is taking away from important areas of your life, is causing you stress or depression, or is leading to financial losses that are beyond your control, please reach out for help. Learn more at responsiblegambling.org.